It is the video that investigators did not want you to see. Tonight, Channel 3 News has obtained recordings of that November police chase that ended with the shooting deaths of two unarmed suspects. Channel 3's Dave Summers got a copy of the tape, and Dave, this video is just unbelievable.
Chris, many in the Cleveland community were astonished at the numbers in this pursuit. 11 officers firing 137 bullets into the suspect's car. The city did not release the actual numbers of officers and police cars involved in the chase. The tape shows us, though. It is a scene like something out of a movie.
The video is recorded by 5 Rapid Transit Authority cameras mounted above bus stops. They're at 80 Road, Superior, Belmore, Windermere, and East 118th Streets. Suspects, passenger Melissa Williams and driver Timothy Russell, led the chase. Moments from now, both would be shot more than 20 times each in the head and chest by 11 officers. The pursuing police were undercover vice detectives and street patrols. Sometimes the pursuit went at a high rate of speed beyond the posted limit, but it's not clear from the tapes exactly how fast. It wound through narrow neighborhood streets, weaving through sometimes dense traffic. At each camera, the chase is recorded. Not a dozen, not 2 dozen, but 51 police cars can be counted in this pursuit. Police protocol is 2 cars, unless circumstances warrant more. Before this video, critics were already calling this a frenzy of out-of-control cops. These pictures will no doubt be used to make their point.
That remarkable police chase happened in downtown Cleveland almost exactly 2 years ago. You saw from the timestamp there, it was in late 2012 was when that happened. November 29th, 2012 was the date of the car chase. The car that was being chased definitely was speeding. Nobody knows why that car was speeding, but neither of the 2 people in that car were armed, nor were they suspected of anything other than speeding. But nevertheless, they said in that news coverage it was 51 cars. No. Turns out it was 62 Cleveland police vehicles got involved in that chase. 62 police vehicles chasing one car. 62 cars. It lasted almost half an hour. They went at speeds over 100 miles per hour through downtown Cleveland. When they finally stopped that car that they were chasing, again, neither of the people in the car were armed. But when they finally stopped that car, Cleveland police officers fired 137 shots into that vehicle. 13 different Cleveland police officers fired their guns into that car. And yes, the 2 people in that car were killed. Look at the bullet markers there, 69, 70, 72. 137 shots into the car. Initially, as you heard from that local news coverage, the police did what they could to try to keep this under wraps, essentially, to try to keep specifically the video of the chase out of the public domain. But something like this, you can't really keep it under wraps, and it became a really big deal in Cleveland really fast for all the obvious reasons. Less than a week after the shooting, again, 137 shots fired at that car. 62 police vehicles involved in the chase. Less than a week after that case, and those 2 people killed by Cleveland police, the city held a public meeting on it.
I know you're saying that it's a delicate situation and you have to do this and you have to do that. It's delicate for us too because our family members were murdered.
Now they're saying it's been ruled as a homicide. Now would these officers actually be brought up on charges, on murder charges? That's the question right there. Right there, would it be brought up on murder charges?
The officers in that case were not brought up on murder charges. The medical examiner did rule both of the deaths in the car chase as a homicide. 5 officers were eventually brought up on misdemeanor charges. Only 1 officer was brought up on a more serious charge of voluntary manslaughter. And he was just one of the 13 officers who fired bullets into that car after that car chase. But of the 13, the 1 officer charged with voluntary manslaughter, he was the only one who reportedly jumped up onto the hood of the car, stood on the car's hood, and then fired down through the windshield into the vehicle at those 2 unarmed people. So he was charged with voluntary manslaughter. He's pled not guilty. Those charges are pending. After that incident, and after the Cleveland Plain Dealer published an expose about a group of 6 police officers that were accused of brutalizing 39 different people over a period of 2 years, and after another shooting incident in which a Cleveland police sergeant shot at a man twice. Who was actually the victim of a crime, a man who was fleeing from a hostage situation. This guy had escaped a crime and was running away. A police sergeant shot that man twice, even though the man was naked except for his boxer shorts. After this litany, right, culminating in the 100-mile-an-hour, 62 police vehicles, 137 shots fired police car chase, after all of this stuff going on in Cleveland, finally the city of Cleveland realized that it had a problem. And the mayor asked the Department of Justice to please come in and investigate his own police department in the city of Cleveland and what the heck appears to be wrong with it. That investigation by the Federal Department of Justice was begun last year. It concluded today, when the city and Attorney General Eric Holder both signed on to an agreement that will put a special monitor in place to try to improve that big, but apparently pretty terrible police force in Ohio. And maybe that will help. When local police departments are terrible, or they do terrible things, often the best source of hope for trying to fix them is that the federal government might come in to try to make things better. But it is worth noting that even as the federal government swoops in to try to save Cleveland from their terrible police officers right now, the federal government is not doing this for the first time. The federal government swooped in to try to save Cleveland from its bad police force a decade ago as well. This is the second major Department of Justice intervention in the Cleveland police force in a decade. Apparently the first one didn't take, so they're trying it again. And since this more recent intervention started, Cleveland has also seen the death of Tamir Rice. Last week, after the Michael Brown grand jury verdict in Ferguson, Missouri, Cleveland was one of the places that marched to protest the death of Michael Brown, like so many cities did around the country. But Cleveland also marched to protest the death of 12-year-old Tamir Rice, who was killed by Cleveland police while he was playing with a realistic-looking BB gun in a Cleveland park. He was at the park alone. He was 12 years old. The police later released this videotape showing the encounter in which they killed this boy. The entire interaction, you'll see, between this 12-year-old boy and the police officers who killed him, the entire interaction lasted less than 3 seconds before the boy was dead. The police officers pull up, the boy falls over, he's dead. Here's what we've learned in the last 24 hours about the 2 officers involved in the shooting of that 12-year-old kid. Again, think Cleveland Police Department, right? Cleveland Plain Dealer reports today that one of the 2 officers was the subject of a police brutality complaint that earlier this year resulted in the city of Cleveland paying out a $100,000 settlement to the local resident who filed the complaint. Now, the details of this incident are a little bit crazy, but listen to this. This is according to the Plain Dealer's account. On August 7th, 2010, Tamala Eaton returned to her home in Cleveland to find a car parked in front of her driveway on Clifton Boulevard. She called Cleveland police to have a tow truck sent, and then she got ready for bed. Unbeknownst to her, Cleveland police had already been sent to her neighborhood to find a suspect in a totally unrelated crime. The officers responding to that call had found a man and a woman walking down the street in that neighborhood and decided to arrest the man, despite his companion loudly protesting that they should not. At that point, the original woman, the woman who had called the tow truck about the car in her driveway and then had gone to bed, she heard this commotion outside her house. She went outside and she believed the officers were there responding to her complaint about the car blocking her driveway. That woman thought the police officers were arresting this guy on the sidewalk because she'd called the police about somebody blocking her driveway. She did not want this man arrested for her complaint about her driveway. That woman, the original woman, then argued with the police officers about this arrest. According to the lawsuit later filed, the officer then rushed the woman, placed her in a chokehold, tackled her to the ground, twisted her wrists, and began hitting her body. The officer's partner then rushed over and proceeded to punch Tamala Eaton in the face multiple times. This is a woman who had called the police for help getting a tow truck because her driveway was blocked. And the helpful Cleveland police force responded as such. And the city of Cleveland paid $100,000 to that woman to try to make that lawsuit go away. They made that payment earlier this year. And then on November 22nd this year, that same officer, the one who rushed her, right, and started punching her, that same officer for whom Cleveland just paid out $100,000, that same officer was driving the patrol car when he and his partner rolled up on 12-year-old Tamir Rice in that park. And less than 3 seconds later, 12-year-old Tamir Rice was dead. You want to know about the other officer in that patrol car, the one who actually fired the shots? Now, in the media reports about Tamir Rice being killed, that officer has routinely been described as a rookie. But he was only a rookie on the Cleveland police force. He previously had worked for another police force, a police force in the suburban town of Independence, Ohio. Well, yesterday, while Tamir Rice's family was burying him, the city of Independence, Ohio, released the personnel file for that officer who they used to employ, who went on to become the Cleveland police officer who killed this 12-year-old kid. Quoting from that personnel file, listen to this. Due to his dangerous loss of composure during live range training and his inability to manage his personal stress, I do not believe the patrolman shows the maturity needed to work in our employment. The pattern developing within our short time frame with the patrolman is that he often feels that when told to do something, those instructions are optional. In law enforcement, there are times when instructions need to be followed to the letter, and I'm under the impression the patrolman, under certain circumstances, will not react in the way instructed. I am recommending he be released from the employment of the City of Independence. I do not believe time nor training will be able to change or correct these deficiencies. So he was fired from a comparatively small-town police department for immaturity, for not being able to manage personal stress, for losing his composure around firearms, for not being able to follow basic instructions. Deficiencies so bad that his previous employer, this small-town department, thought that neither training nor allowing the guy to grow up would ever fix those things. He was inherently unsuited for police work, and so they let him go. Those are the circumstances under which he left his last job. And then the city of Cleveland snapped him up and put him on patrol. And they snapped him up in part because there apparently has been no policy at the Cleveland Police Department that when they hire a new cop, they check the personnel file from that person's previous job. They've never had a policy of doing that. That's one of the new policies they're going to look into changing now that the federal government is not exactly taking over, but is taking over the Cleveland Police Department because they're so terrible. But in the meantime, that is the cop who killed a 12-year-old boy. And this was Cleveland Today.